want to thank our sponsor, Newmark Watch Company, who are a British-owned brand who create some stunning timepieces such as their 52 Field Watch that come in 2 colours, their classic 71 Sports which come in 3 colours, and the Water King that is up to 200 metres of water resistance. They also continue to award the Newmark Helicopter Flying Trophy each year at RAF Shawbury, where the trainee pilot with the highest marks is presented with the trophy and a 6BB watch. Visit their website at newmarkwatchcompany.com to discover all their collection, including the iconic 6BB chronograph that was issued to the RAF in the 1980s. Thank you and enjoy.
So I don't know if you have any memorable stories, or have you got any stories from, any incidents of people you took on board, or any cargo you like, that was a weird one, or anything like that, Rob?
Well, there are things that come to mind as far as I would always try and bring people up to the front if we could. Obviously, nothing around the carrier. If we're doing a cat shot, I'm not even sure who's getting in the back of my airplane half the time.
Oh, do you not?
Unless not other than here's a list of names. I mean, I'm not meeting them.
Okay.
Right. If we're on the ship turning, we kind of look at it and say, okay, cool. Like, I know about who's there. If somebody important's there, we're told that, but I don't meet and greet them every time. Even we would we call it home guard, but in Virginia, when we would fly to the carrier, like on a Saturday or something, just to go and fly something to the ship, a lot of times we would start the airplane, which you can imagine this makes sense. We do it as a crew by ourselves, and then we would taxi over to a special building where the distinguished visitors were kept while they were pampered and given cold waters and stuff, and then we'd basically swing around and pick them up. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Is that if our plane broke before we went to started it up, or while we're starting it up, and then obviously it just saves everyone the agony and the stress. It's not like flying commercial. Obviously it can get very hot and you're sweaty or cold depending on the season. But when we did get kind of flying, especially if we're taking off from land and we're flying to the carrier and we had a little bit of a stretch, I would absolutely bring people up to the front. There's really nothing secret in our cockpit other than a few things that we would kind of cover up about, like location for the ship. And I mean, especially if we had new sailors on, people that just joined the military, or I talked about teachers before, these distinguished visitors, people that weren't really familiar with the military and they've barely flown commercial, let alone never seen a cockpit on a British Airways or a Delta jet. Yeah. And now I'm bringing them to the front, like, hey, we had literally a bucket. We're like, put a bucket there. Hey, check this out, and wrote them in for 5 minutes. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, when it was time to do business around the carrier, we would have to put everyone back in their seat and then kind of focus on the job at hand. So I enjoyed that aspect to it. I enjoyed kind of being an ambassador for, I don't know, our country or just the Navy in general, or naval aviation in general. And I enjoyed that. And maybe that's what led to me showing things off on YouTube to kind of, give the C2 some love that it has been deserving for a long time.
Absolutely. And we're going to get onto that. But so how many hours did you get on the C2? And how many traps did you get also?
I got just over, I think, like 1,100 hours in the COD,
nice.
Or thereabouts. Several hundred on deployment, as you can imagine, which was great. I mean, it's getting 40, 50 hours a month. And then traps, I think I've got like 130 something combined. Only half or 2/3 of those would be in the left seat. Because the way it works is we would fly to the ship, pilot and co-pilot. Whoever's in the left seat gets the trap. And if your viewers are wondering, you never can trap in the right seat. I mean, to the point where if you're flying out to the carrier and the person in the left seat has a heart attack and is completely incapacitated, your job is to go around, get up to altitude, call an air crew in the back to help drag the body out, and then you get in the left seat to then land on the carrier. It's that intense. It all comes down to muscle memory. Now on land, all day long, we're in the right seat. Not a problem, right? But on the carrier, just with the way that we do our left-hand turns in the left seat, and you're always like, look at that sight picture is so important that you nail it. So we're always in the left seat. So I was saying that I only got about half of my traps total from the left seat. The other half was in the right seat. So we would usually fly out to the ship as a team, and then we usually switch seats once we got on deck. And the reason for that is because only one of us needed the trap. Every 14 days, I think it is, you need to be current to get a arrested landing. So if you were outside of those 14 days, you would have to do like a special, I think maybe 2 or 3 touch and goes and a trap. But if you were like 12, 13, 14 days, you needed the trap more than the guy who just had one 2 days ago. So you would fly on the left seat, get the trap. Now you're recurrent again. And then we usually just switch because the catapult shot's a lot of fun. So it's basically whoever got to fly to the carrier is the co-pilot on the way out of there. So at least you could do something fun, either land on the boat. I say fun, air quotes, land on the boat, or then take the cat shot on the other side.
Well, it sounds like you had an amazing time, but you've also put that into a YouTube channel. So tell us about that, because it's absolutely fascinating. I love your voiceovers, the videos, and explaining everything. So tell us about this, Rob.
Yeah. And side note, I just want to take this time to say your channel is awesome and you're growing it like crazy, 50 some thousand subscribers. It's really great. It's great for aviation. So congrats to you.
Cheers.
Like I said earlier, I took some GoPros in a cockpit a little bit before we went on deployment. And then certainly when we went on deployment at the time, just to date myself, I mean, I had a GoPro Hero 2 and a GoPro Hero 4 because I couldn't afford a second Hero 4. And that's important because the Hero 2 was 1080 and the Hero 4 was like 4K. Right. And I wish I could just, go back and throw it on a credit card and get a second Hero 4 to have two 4K. That's why when you look at the videos, I think the one facing the water out is a little bit more pixelated than the one our faces are really clear. That's why, because they're two different GoPro cameras. But anyway, I took these cameras up in the plane, and I just wanted to film videos for my new wife at the time and my mom, I guess. And I think I threw them on Facebook and got like 1,000 views. And okay, cool. But what I did was I grew up. I used to make movies as a kid. I've actually been in a few films like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, and I was an extra as a kid growing up. So I've kind of been around movies. And then I was the director of my TV studio in high school. And so I've absolutely been around cameras and, MacBooks and all this stuff. And so I'm not God's gift to editing movies by any means, but I've just been around it. And I was kind of watching, and first of all, this is 2015. And so the C-2 is, as we know, not a really sexy airplane. And it's kind of, it's tight on the inside. I mean, it's big in a way, but it's tight. It's dark. We have these like weird windows that come, like we call them bubble windows. They come out to the side. Yeah. Point is, it's not a Super Hornet with a glass canopy and you can see everything and it's beautiful and the sun comes in. Like it's a little bit more uninviting. So I was like, well, how do we, I want to show the landing on the carrier. So obviously over the shoulder makes sense. And a lot of people at the time would just do either like in the cockpit facing forward, on the windscreen facing forward, which I was like, well, you don't get to see anything that we do. You just see the ship. Mm-hmm. So I had the idea of putting it, we had this bubble window I keep mentioning, which the E2 does not have it. So that was kind of an advantage for us. I found that if you look in the video too, you can see there's all kinds of attachments with GoPro. And there was this one, it was this arm that was really rigid, but you could bend it, coupled it, like S-turn it. And that's important because the C2, obviously, it's not ergonomical. There's no spot for a camera mount, let's say, and there's no suction cup operation back there that would work. So I did this beefy clip followed by a beefy kind of snaky arm that was hard plastic and was able to angle it so that it captured over my shoulder, which, we do a lot of yoke movement, which you can see in the videos. And that's not just me. That's any E2, C2 pilot. It's kind of required. So that was kind of cool. And then I was like, well, it would be kind of cool to kind of show what we're looking at and seeing it. So I did a camera facing us. And a couple of the videos, I mean, once you turn the camera on, you honestly kind of forget that it's there. But a couple of the videos you can see, I might be flipping the visor up because it was sunny enough, but not too sunny. And it was like this weird light, situation where if you had the visor down, you couldn't see your instruments, but if you had it up, you're still kind of squinting. So some of the videos, the visor comes up and you can kind of see my eyes moving around and, see what we're looking at, which I think adds to the video. But yeah, that was the initial catalyst for the videos, was just I wanted to capture what we were doing because I thought it was kind of cool. And the reason that the same couple people are my co-pilots in those videos is because I was on deployment. It was just the same. I told you we had 6 pilots. One was the officer in charge. Wasn't dare about to ask him if I could film while we were flying together. And then 2 of the other guys were junior pilots like myself. And then 3 of the other guys who you see in most of the videos are the other, aircraft commanders. And so at the time I wasn't in AC, but they were. So that's why it's the same 3 guys in most of the videos, because I was always flying with them to the carrier. And we were going 3, 4, 5 times a week. So I just got a lot of footage at the time.
Yeah, and it's awesome to see and watch that. But did you have to get permission from the Navy, or could you just do what you want?
Because that's a great question. Truth be told, it's a little bit of, beg for forgiveness, later kind of thing. The answer is we were allowed to film it. because there was nothing secret in our cockpit. And I think the official word that came down was, as long as it wasn't interfering with our duties of flying, then it was fine. Today, I mean, YouTube has evolved. Social media, I don't think, I mean, Instagram was a thing, but not like it was then, like it is today. But I mean, Growler Jams is doing his thing with Growlers, which is literally a several $100 million aircraft that's designed to jam enemy radar. And I'm sure there are hurdles he has to jump through as well. But the big thing was that it was nothing classified in our cockpit. There's nothing secret to share. I mean, the C-2's been around for decades and it's not a big deal. And then really with flight ops, I mean, you can Google all this stuff. I mean, there's publications on the internet that the Navy puts out there. So it was more about getting permission from kind of on the local level, like to my squadron. So my squadron CO, like they were aware and stuff. But at the time, I didn't really post it to YouTube either. And that took 5 years or so before I even put it on there, only because I kind of forgot about it. So I don't want to say it was a gray area, but legally, which is totally in the right, we're allowed to do it, which as a red-blooded American, there's nothing I would fear more than giving away our secrets to the enemy. That is not on my agenda at any given day. I'm very proud to be an American and very proud to serve in the military and give us the upper hand that we've had for many hundreds of years. But at the same time, it's also sharing kind of the beauty of aviation, the beauty of what we do with our families and our country and the rest of the world, because it's an awesome experience. So it kind of worked out that maybe it's a good thing I wasn't a fighter pilot flying secret missions, because I wouldn't be able to share anything. But like how you get the non-classified cargo plane, no one cares about you. Go forth. Okay.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've geeks like me, when I came across your channel, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Just seeing like two blokes there doing their thing. I was like, this is incredible. And it was really well shot, and your narration as well was great. But what's that actual YouTube channel? Is it Fly Rob Roy? Is that what it's called?
It is, yeah. If you go to youtube.com/@FlyRobRoy, it will take you there. If you just, I mean, obviously you're a Brit. Rob Roy was a very famous Scotsman. So I'm competing with a little bit of the Liam Neeson film, which is a great movie, and Rob Roy in general. But if you go to YouTube and type in Rob Roy Navy, it will absolutely pop up. My face will pop up, and you'll see, if you see Rob Roy with people flying in a plane with helmets on, that's my channel.
That's you. Yeah. But you also have a website and a newsletter. Can you tell us about this, Rob? Yeah.
So I recently started a newsletter called Flybuyer. That's FLYBUYER. You can go to flybuyer.com. And it's a free weekly newsletter that I come out with every week, usually on Tuesday morning here in the States. And I am gathering relevant aviation news and content that is happening the week prior and sharing it with my community. So my main job right now is to grow that as much as possible. The idea is to provide as much value as I can to people that are aviation enthusiasts. So people that fly airplanes, people that work on airplanes, that touch airplanes, that ride in airplanes, or just av geeks that just, maybe they're broken and they can't fly because they lost their medical, but they just love aviation. And so I have a newsletter that's curated to those kind of folks. And me being a younger guy, millennial, I mean, I try and keep it lighthearted, because I believe that aviation, obviously based on my naval experience, is very serious business, but it doesn't mean we can't have a little fun with it too, and make fun of ourselves here and there in a lighthearted way. So I try not to report any super negative news. I try to keep it lighthearted, but also I found that there are other aviation publications in the past that just are very serious, and that's fine. This is another opportunity for people to read it in a more of a funny, haha kind of way. So that's kind of what I've been working on the last couple of months. And I'm at the point where literally in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm about to either pivot my YouTube channel or start a new one. I'm still up in the air on that. And to go full in on what I want to do is what I call airplane reviews. So I have already made a couple videos behind the scenes. Nothing's been published yet, where I've done 3 airplanes so far. I did a Piper Saratoga 2 TC, 2000. And I just did yesterday and the day before, I did a Kodiak 100 and a Pilatus PC-12. So they're basically airplane walk-around videos, but I call them airplane reviews, because there are a lot of car reviewers out there on YouTube, but there's really no one on YouTube doing reviews. People have done walk-arounds in the past, but a lot of times it's either for a plane that they're selling, so it's only a couple, or they just go to air shows and they say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, tell me about your airplane. And then you get the old guy telling you about his airplane, which is great. But I'm trying to be the guy who goes around and try to memorize as much as I can and not sound silly. And I want to basically become the Doug DeMuro of aviation, if you know who that is. Just have a huge library of airplanes on my channel. And the idea for that is to drive traffic to the newsletter and kind of just grow this little aviation business that I'm curating. And Flybuyer, I can't let the cat out of the bag now, but Flybuyer, the newsletter, is named that as such because there's something I want to do with the company in the next coming year or so that will become my thing. And so this is kind of laying the groundwork. The newsletter is phase one. Dedicated aviation YouTube channel on airplane reviews is phase two. And then the real thing is phase three. So that's kind of what I'm working on.
Awesome stuff. So watch your space, I guess. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's. We got a couple of personal ones here to wrap up. Rob, do you have any hobbies?
Oh man, I have 3 kids under 7 years old, so very much in the weeds with bedtime routines. We live in Montana here in the States, about 90 minutes outside of Yellowstone, and I'm big into the outdoors. I used to have a podcast myself. It was called Adventure Bound. It's probably still on iTunes somewhere. And so I used to interview people about getting outside. So I'm a big proponent of getting outdoors and breathing fresh air. And so we go out to Yellowstone when we can, or just around Big Sky Country here in Montana, and just love hiking and breathing in fresh air. I snowboard in the wintertime. I am a licensed skydiver with a couple hundred jumps. I was the officer in charge of the parachute team at the Naval Academy when I worked on staff there. So I do love to skydive, although it's hard for me to get out there with kids these days just to find the time. And then I'm big into fly fishing as well here in Montana. I mean, I'm literally 25 minutes from where they filmed. A river runs through it. So it is drop dead gorgeous country out here. But I'm kind of just an overall outdoor enthusiast. So if you've got some 4-wheelers or side-by-sides, I'll happily go on a ride with you. I'll ride motorcycles. I'll do the things. I just like doing all things, but I don't necessarily have some crazy hobby where like I bake on Saturdays and they're amazing. I don't have one of those. I just like to do things to stay active, basically try and be a good father, trying to run a business from the ground up, and also try and get outside when I can.
Awesome stuff. I think I know the answer to this one, Rob, but favorite aircraft you've flown?
That I've ever flown? It's probably the T-45. I mean, that was just being a jet. I mean, it's basically a baby Hornet. It was a lot of fun. It was just a slippery little airplane, and you could do a lot of things. And just the fact that I was given the keys to it, so to speak, as a 3-year-old, 24-year-old, it felt
crazy.
Kind of surreal to be like, okay, here we go. And, there's 200, I'm going to overspeed the gear. I mean, just the things that we did. And the first time I ever landed on a carrier was in that by myself. There's no one in the back. And it's like the whole thing. It was just a really memorable experience and really enjoyed it. And I mean, the C-2, I mean, that will forever live in my heart. It was just a great airplane. And I'm proud to have flown it and to have mastered that type of flying, because I learned from some of the best pilots I've ever met, guys much better than me. Just right rudder, center line, right? All those things in your head. And I've flown in the back of a few airplanes over the years. I mean, obviously commercial, but other, like a Vision Jet and some other things. But I'm really hoping with this new direction I'm taking with Flybuyer and my YouTube channel that I'm going to get access to a lot of airplanes. And I'm not necessarily banking on flying them. That's not part of my shtick at all. But I do think that opportunity will come. And I am. I did recently put a deposit down on a plane called a Bearhawk. It's an experimental airplane, if you're familiar with experimental versus certified here in the States and how that works. But it's an experimental backcountry bush plane that's technically a 6-seater. So you can fit 4 people very comfortably with some bags in the back, or probably 6 people if 2 or 4 of them were kids. And so I got that for just beep bopping around here in Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, and looking to do some backcountry flying. Yeah, so stand by for that.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, so Rob, can you just remind you where we can find you online, your website? Are you on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff?
Yeah, the best way to kind of get in touch with me, you can sign up for my newsletter. Again, it's free to sign up. Go to flybuyer.com/subscribe. That would take you right to the link to sign up. If you just go to flybuyer.com, again, that's FLYBUYER, flybuyer.com, you can subscribe in the top right and you can look at the articles. You only get so far before a pop-up comes up and says, hey, this is free, but please, sign up. Or I'm on Instagram right now. My handle is at FlyRobRoy. And you can always send me a message and go from there.
Awesome stuff. But yeah, Rob, thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing a bit your story, and everything you just mentioned will be linked in the description below. But yeah, it's an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks again, Mike. Last thing I'll say too is if people listening to this, I'll happily make a trip over to the UK, but especially if you're in the States, especially if you're in the Mountain West, and if you have an airplane, I don't care if it's a Cessna 172, a Piper Saratoga, or a G650, or a Goodyear blimp. I would love to have access to it to make about a 4-hour walk around style. Well, me spending 4 hours walk around the video to make a 20-minute YouTube video. So you can send me an email at rob@flybuyer.com or reach out to me on Instagram and go from there. That'd be awesome.
Awesome stuff. Cheers, Matt.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.